Recording in progress.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Calling to order the meeting of the Washoe County Regional Animal Services Advisory Board. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025, just after 9 a.m. And I'm going to start with asking first if the Zoom is working and make sure we have sound, and if we could do a sound check on that. Is there anyone on Zoom that could confirm you can hear us?
Zoom is working fine.
And who is that, please?
Julie McMahon for the record.
Oh, excellent, Julie. I was hoping you were on there. Okay, so Madam Clerk, can you give us a roll call, please?
Chair Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Clara Andriola.
Present.
Trudy Broussard.
Present.
Diaz Dixon.
Present.
Jill Fisher.
Present.
Julie McMahon.
Present.
Joe Rodriguez is not currently present.
Okay. And then you would usually say, Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
That's awesome. Okay, good. And then we're going to salute the flag, and I'm going to ask our new member, Clara Andriola, to lead us, please.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Nice job. Thank you. The next thing, before we read the instructions for providing public comment, I just want to see, since there's very few people in attendance, and I don't know, Madam Clerk, can you tell me, are there many people on the Zoom?
We do have, it appears to be several
okay.
members of the public on Zoom,
Okay.
yes.
And the members on Zoom, if any of you wish to speak, could you raise your hand now?
No one has indicated they wish to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, and Madam Attorney, is it okay if we skip reading the instructions since no one wants to make public comment at this time?
I would recommend I'll just read them.
Oh, fine, that's fine.
Jen Gustafson for the record. This meeting is being held in the Commission chambers and also via Zoom. To attend the meeting via Zoom, you can log into the meeting at the link that's found on the first page of today's agenda. You can also join the meeting by typing zoom.us into your computer browser, clicking Join a Meeting on the Zoom website, and entering meeting ID 921-1863-5432. If anyone is on Zoom and has some computer difficulties, you can also join today's meeting by telephone only by dialing 1-669-900-9128 and enter meeting ID 921-1863-5432 and pressing pound. For members of the public that are on Zoom today, during any public comment period, you can provide public comment by utilizing the raised hand feature. And if you're joining us via telephone today, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And again, I'm going to just call for public comment now that you've heard the disclosure instructions about providing public comment. And is there anyone on Zoom or in the room that would like to make public comment?
There is no one indicating they wish to provide public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, you can make public comment on our action items, and then at the end, if you so desire. And I just wanted to ask this, there's a second screen that's facing us. Unfortunately, it's at such a distance that I can't read it. Could you tell us what that screen is?
That second screen is simply a translation that is provided to the public. It is also displayed facing the public so that anybody who does not prefer English as their primary language can follow along our meeting.
Okay, and what language is, I can't read it, is it in?
It is currently provided in Spanish. However, members of the public who wish to join with a different language are invited to request a tablet, and we can provide it in that fashion.
Okay, well, that's great. This is a new thing, and I've been having meetings in this room for a couple decades, but in the last decade and since COVID when we started with the Zoom, so that's a newer feature for me. So thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 5, which is approval of the October 18, 2024 meeting minutes. And I encourage or invite any board members who may have identified any corrections or additions to the draft minutes to please share those with us.
Madam Chair, may I
Yes,
ask
please.
for clarification? I wasn't at that meeting, and I'll defer to legal in terms of abstaining from this vote since I wasn't there, or your direction.
Jen Gustafson for the record. So there's no legal prohibition on you voting. Actually, as a board member, NRS indicates that you have a duty to participate and to vote, even if you weren't present at a meeting in which the minutes are reflecting. So there's no legal reason for you to abstain.
Thanks for that clarification. I appreciate it.
And Madam Clerk, could you try to mute the folks on Zoom, please? Thank you. Although we can still hear them. Okay. And then, were you raising your hand, Ms. Fisher?
Member Fisher, for the record, I do see one correction. It's not major. It's on page 12 of 12, where it states Member Dixon added that they could perhaps reach out to HVAC companies as well as reaching out to partners in Phoenix or Arizona. Phoenix is spelled incorrectly, and I think saying Phoenix or Arizona is,
Probably
I don't
meant
know.
Phoenix, Arizona.
yeah.
Okay. All right, did you catch those, Madam Clerk? All right, thank you. Well, are there anyone else have any modifications? Ms. Broussard?
Trudy Broussard, for the record. Actually, I don't have a modification. I wanted to compliment our Ms. Stockdale for the excellence of the minutes that we've had recently. They're just a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Stockdale. Really appreciate it. All right, and so at this time, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment as read by our member.
Trudy Broussard, for the record, move to approve.
All right, and is there a second?
Second. Dias
All right,
Dixon.
so we have a motion by Ms. Broussard, second by Mr. Dixon. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. And our next item will be item 6, a director's report. And Director Schul says she has quite a bit to share with us today. And I do want to note, for the record, we do not have a report today from the Nevada Humane Society. They said that neither the, I'm not sure of her official title, director or assistant director, could be present today. So,
Good morning, Cheyenne Schull for the record. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Commissioner Andriola as our newest member to this board. We look forward to working with you. This morning, I have quite a few updates as standard reporting to you all in terms of statistics, but in addition to that, I also have some key highlights that I'd like to share in relevance to personnel and some of our newest developments within our department within the last quarter. So quarter 2 of fiscal year 25, we've got several performance statistics, but some of our key highlights that I'd like to talk a little bit about today are personnel challenges and some of the time and effort and resources that have gone into onboarding new team members, as well as how the vacancies impact our service delivery and efficiency. Our department has 46 full-time positions allocated to our department, with one additional position as a half-time IT person, which is in the back of the room running the meeting now. And so with that small of a department, any vacancy, any light-duty employee impacts our department significantly. And because we are a 365-day-a-year operation, it definitely has an impact when we lose one employee or we have one vacancy. During last quarter, we hired one animal services officer, we hired one caretaker, and one program assistant. The onboarding time that it takes for one animal services officer is between 3 and 6 months. That is a field training officer time that it takes for one other officer to step out of their regular role and train that new officer. And so as you can imagine, if we have 1 or 2 officers at the same time, we have to pull one of our field officers or 2 of our field officers out of their regular routine jobs to train that new onboarding officer. So it's pretty labor intensive every time we train a new field staff, not to mention the other staff members that I mentioned. Currently, we have 2 vacancies. We have 1 animal service officer vacancy and 1 caretaker vacancy, which we are interviewing for and attempting to fill currently. We've got 2 animal service officers on modified duty, which significantly impacts our coverage ability. There were also some developments late last summer with regards to labor negotiations that added a substantial bump to vacation time for our employees, which I applaud the vacation time. However, it significantly impacts our ability to provide coverage with the same number of bodies for the level of service that we provide to our community. I mention this because it affects our service delivery, call response times, and overall efficiency, and also redirects services and onboard training and takes it away from the ability for us to really have efficient field service coverage, shelter coverage, and that round-the-clock service delivery. For the reasons mentioned above, given and respectfully understood that Washoe County has significant budget constraints that have been shared and publicized, we are asking for another additional lead animal service officer. We have 1 currently who is responsible for training and bringing on all new ASO recruits. This position has proven to be overwhelmed and not able to balance the number of new recruits that we've had, in addition to the internal training that we've been trying to provide to our team without having to send people away for training. So train the trainer type programs really prove to be more efficient for our teams that have not only new training for new officers, but the ongoing recertifications that are required. Another significant achievement that my team accomplished in Q2 is related to our partnership with Nevada Humane Society. As part of our work and goal-oriented sessions that we worked through in late 2023 and 2024 with the Nevada Humane Society and Animal Services leadership and staff, we developed a shared behavior protocol through our respective behavior consultants. The goal of the shared behavior protocol is to use risk assessment criteria to help us identify unsafe behavior in dogs and evaluate that level of risk in those dogs to our community and to our shelters. The Animal Services team dived into this wholeheartedly. It was a big endeavor. For those of you who know the staff at Animal Services and sort of our mission, we have never provided behavior assessments in the past. We are largely a lost and found shelter with minimal holding capacities and timeframes. So when we shifted focus and responsibility to take this on, it meant that my team was going to have to learn and also document and record a lot of additional behavior data. Field officers, front intake staff, office staff, medical staff, and also my caretakers. We integrated the behavior note-taking and criteria into our software so that our field officers, when they come across a stray dog or a found dog, they take notes from the first contact of having that animal in their care. Our front office staff do the same. Our medical staff do the same while they're intaking the animal. And then on top of that, our caretakers do a full behavior assessment on each dog. This behavior assessment requires them to take the dog out of the kennel and into a quiet space, which happens to be a storage room because it's our only quiet space that we have at the current time, and do a full-on behavior assessment that measures a dog's response to human interaction and touch, to resource guarding, to other dog-to-dog interactions, just to name a few. These behavior evaluations take between 30 and 45 minutes per dog, and it takes 2 of my caretakers. Mind you, I have 7 caretakers to provide for dogs and cats and small animals and livestock. So it impacts us significantly to conduct these assessments. But the goal is to assess the risk of the animals that we are evaluating for safety for our community and not make those that present risk significant, that meet the threshold based on our shared protocol, back into our community. So essentially, they do not get put on the transfer list for Nevada Humane Society or other rescue transfer partners. So the goal is to really have a more shared protocol on how we screen animals using our behavior protocols, from our professionals, which respective to each of our own, to help protect our community and our shelters. So this has created quite a significant shift in workload for my team, and though I'm super proud of them for taking this on and really lifting this project last quarter, it's a tremendous workload, and it is not sustainable with the number of team members that I have when we enter into the busy season. So currently we're in our slow season, but as soon as it warms up, we'll start seeing a number of animals increasing and more kittens and puppies coming into our shelter, and it's a challenge for us. So for that reason, we are asking for a transfer and behavior coordinator position, which would be a brand new position to our department, to be that conduit of information, behavior evaluations, and also liaison with rescue partners, because we are continually working to bring on new rescue and transfer partners to help us with the animals that do not get transferred to the Humane Society.
Cheyenne, are you shifting to a new topic now?
So now I'll shift to our.
Well, what I was going to say is before you do, I know you have a long presentation, so I think I'd just like to hold right there and see if there's any comments on the thing that you just presented. So are there any thoughts or comments on that? Well, I have a comment. So you're doing this, but Nevada Humane also does it, right? They're evaluating behavior like in a one time before they'll take the animal transfer, is that right? Or how does this work?
Cheyenne, for the record. So we have respective evaluations. Ours is very different than the Humane Society's evaluation process. We do our own so that we can have a pathway plan for that animal and not rely 100% on another transfer partner to take that animal. And so their criteria is very different. And though they may decline an animal, it doesn't mean that the animal's not adoptable. And so we will try to network it out to other rescue partners. And having that behavior assessment helps us to do that, to ensure that the animal is, from what we can put together with that patchwork of evaluation, just in that short time that an animal is with us, if it is deemed safe to be put back into the community.
So it sounds like one difference, maybe from what you've said, it sounds like you said you start evaluating the behavior from the time you're out in the field, maybe capturing the animal, and if the animal somehow comes into your place in a different manner, I guess from the moment it gets there. And so it sounds like you're doing evaluation over a 5 or 6 day period.
Correct.
And what does Humane Society do? Do they just come and visit? Like, is it at the 5th day they come and decide if they can take a particular animal, or how does this work?
Cheyenne, for the record, what we're aiming to do is to have evaluations performed on the dogs before they reach the end of their stray hold period. Right. So that we already have a plan, because length of stay is so critical to us. We want to make sure that the animal has a pathway already in the works before the end of that stray hold occurs. So we've hit some bumps in the road, trying to get those assessments done before the end of their stray hold period, but that's the goal, is to get to that by the 6th day that dog has had an assessment. When that animal becomes available to be transferred, if it becomes available to be transferred, if it hasn't already been deemed, a dog that would pose a significant risk to our community based on our evaluation and our notes, then it would become available for the Nevada Humane Society to transfer, and then that is when their behavior teams come down to our side and do their behavior assessments.
Well, I guess what I'm kind of struck that you're doing it over a several day period. They're doing it maybe in a 1 hour period when they come to evaluate the animal. So I'm not, I'm seeing a very different, when we call it behavioral assessment, but they're really two pretty different processes, I'm thinking.
They are very different, yes. And so for our intents and purposes, because we are a limited holding facility we don't have the volunteers and the dog walkers and the supportive services, we don't have the opportunity to really interact with a dog that is outside of the normal sheltering environment. And so for us to be able to assess them from the very onset of intake, whether that be over the counter in our lobby or whether it's an officer bringing in the dog, we're trying to capture who is this dog through snippets of behavioral information. And so this is how our behavior consultant, Kelly Bolin, has guided us to come to that determination.
Okay.
And so having a little bit of information shared by anyone who came into contact with that dog is very helpful in putting together that piece of the puzzle of who is this dog.
And just so we can get our mind around this, so some subset of the dogs or cats are returned to their owner.
Yes.
They're not going to get adopted out. And then some, and do you know that quick breakdown, or is that something else you're going to cover later? It would help me to understand how many dogs or cats are affected by this behavioral assessment. You know, is it like, do you return 80%, 50% of the dogs, 20%?
So in 2024 calendar year, we had approximately 60% of
Return.
stray dogs that came into our facility get returned to their owners.
Gotcha.
So keep in mind, we have some that are part of a case, or they're quarantine animals, or, you know, they're not stray, they were
Right.
potentially
Don't fall
seized
in
from
that
a
pot
former
to-
owner.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah, they're never going back to their former owner, right?
Right.
We don't want them to. Okay. Anyone else have? Yeah, Mr. Dixon.
Yeah, Dias Dixon for the record. So you've got two different evaluation processes, and it sounds like yours is longer. And for my advisory members, cortisol levels in dogs in shelters are 3 times higher than a dog at home. And in the first 3 days, those are really critical moments where they're really, really high. And the cortisol basically is a hormone that helps regulate stress, blood pressure, and all kinds of other stuff. So you can't do a quick evaluation on a dog. You can't just look at a dog through a kennel or pull a dog out on a leash and have an accurate evaluation. So first, I will commend you and your team for making sure that you are doing this over a time period, which is really hard for you to do, put time into it. But you're doing it the right way.
Niggers, we hate Jews, we hate faggots.
For best practices and how this is done. So I'm just saying that for the record, it's really important that as Nevada Humane Society or any of the other entities that you're working with from Washoe County standpoint are on the same page with doing this if we're truly going to be fair to these pets that are coming in. That's all I got to say. I'm sorry, I actually was going to ask you a question. I think I kind of threw myself off there. If there's anything that I said was inaccurate, please feel free to straighten that out.
Cheyenne, for the record, thank you for that acknowledgement. And yes, we do agree with the consistency is really a valuable method by which to approach this. And I am happy to ask our behavior consultant, Ms. Bolin, if she would be willing to come to a future meeting to talk in depth and further about this assessment, because Animal Services has invested a great deal of time and effort and training to ensure that our team is following best practices based on her guidance. And she is a renowned behavior consultant who talks to shelters all over the country. I would be happy to invite her to talk in depth about this behavior assessment process and how it came to be and how she worked with Nevada Humane Society's respective consultant to come up with this shared protocol.
Yeah. And let me ask, I know, Madam Clerk, you just had to run around the room, but could you switch it so that the public, or maybe they can they see Cheyenne speaking?
So
Or do they only
unfortunately, we
see
had
this?
to disconnect the Zoom meeting due to what was happening.
Okay. Okay. So, but in general, when we have it go, even with or without Zoom, I guess, my question is just, I know there's cameras in this room, but do they show the speaker generally?
On Zoom, it is my understanding that the speaker is shown, yes.
Okay, great. All right, very good. Okay, thank you. So going back to this issue of behavioral, I too want to commend, I mean, this has been a long time coming. You've had the training by Kelly Bolin of your staff. I think this is extremely valuable because whether or not Nevada Humane, they're one partner, one adoption partner, and I know that they do probably the majority, but they also are declining animals, I think, more often than they used to. Based on behavior, their own behavior assessment. And to Mr. Dixon's point, I mean, here you have an animal that's been in a cage for 5-6 days, and that is probably not their best moment. Is at that moment when we're talking about having them adopted out. And so it's very difficult. I know, from my own experience with my own animals, even just having them in one room, never mind a cage, changes their behavior versus having the run of the house or the run of yard or whatever. So so thank you for doing it and putting all this time and energy into it because it's extremely valuable. And whether it's Nevada Humane doing the adoption process or one of our other rescue partners, it's incredibly valuable for them to make a good fit, right, with the animal. Let me ask, does anyone else have any comments on this? And Ms. McMahon, I know you're on. Well, she's no longer on Zoom, I guess. Sorry. For a moment there, I forgot. So maybe in 10 minutes we could reconnect the Zoom. I don't know. Yeah, that's a great idea. Could you text her perhaps and ask her to phone in? Is that an option? Versus
That would also be through Zoom, and that would, again, subject us to being what they're calling Zoom bombed, which was when the member of the public came and was posting the inappropriate material.
Okay. So there's no separate call-in in this room? Separate? I thought there was from old days.
I am not aware of such.
Okay.
There might be, and I can contact tech services.
Okay. All righty. So why don't you do that? Because I'd love her to still be part of our meeting. All right. So thank you for that section. I know you have more to share.
I do. Cheyenne, for the record. So moving on to our performance statistics, and as a reminder, the statistics that are shared with you are this quarter over previous 4 years, same quarter, just for comparison purposes. And this slide represents animal intake of all live animals, dogs, cats, small animals, and any livestock that we may have received during quarter 2. We received 2,526 animals. So from the bottom up, you're looking at cats, which we received 958 of, and 1,350 dogs, and 218 small animals. We're seeing a slight uptick in the number of small animals, and not certain what the correlation can be made there other than we've had a few abandonment cases where people moved out and left large numbers of gerbils, fish, rabbits, things like that behind. So I'm not really sure if there's any other correlation other than people leaving animals behind. The next slide that we're looking at is our length of stay. And of course, this is a performance metric that we track closely because, as mentioned in many prior presentations, our shelter is designed to be a stray holding facility only. And so we want to monitor carefully how long animals are staying with the desire to move them quickly past our facility and hopefully into a live outcome or return to their owner quickly past that stray hold. So the length of stay for dogs has slightly decreased, which is good. 7.7 days is the average length of stay for dogs that were in our care. And then cats also slightly increasing, and they are staying at approximately 6 days in our care.
You said increasing, but you mean?
Decreasing, sorry, correction.
Decreasing? Yeah.
Decreasing.
Okay, good.
Yes, moving through the shelter at a more rapid
quickly.
rate of speed.
Yeah.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, this is our slow time of year, and so we expect to see pretty efficient performance numbers at this time of year, but next quarter we'll start seeing those upticks of animals coming in and probably longer lengths of stay. So this slide, what we're looking at here is all animals that were impounded that were already microchipped. and broken down by species, cats and dogs. And of course, this is a performance metric that we like to track because we have a free microchip program that we offer to all Washoe County residents that we've offered since 2012. And we believe that it is a valuable program that returns a great value for the investment of what we pay for the microchips to get animals expeditiously back home. So in addition to promoting microchips, what we're heavily focusing on now is also the external identification that is equally important. Though microchips are permanent and they stay in the animal until it perishes, external ID is what your Good Samaritan and your general finder is going to probably utilize to reunify a pet. And so we promote those equally as important, and we offer those free as well. We have a tag engraving machine, and we offer those to our Washoe County residents for both dogs and cats as well, and encourage both microchips and that external ID as tools to help get pets reunified. So as you can see, 12% of the cats that came into our care last quarter were already microchipped, and 48% of dogs were already microchipped. And so, of course, our goal is to continue increasing that number of animals that are chipped so we can get them back home quickly. We have been focusing heavily on the importance of microchipping cats because our community members that don't necessarily recognize that cats can go missing, and you don't necessarily realize your cat is missing for a day or two, that it can happen, and the likelihood of being reunited with your cat decreases significantly if there isn't any form of identification. And so we will continue marketing that messaging and focusing on cats. So the slide that we're looking at here are animals that were reunited, picked up and reunited in the field by my animal service officers. So the total number of stray animals that were picked up is in the dark blue, the total
Recording
bar there,
in progress.
and the light blue reflects the subset of those that were reunited in the field and never brought to the shelter. So 38% of animals picked up in the field were returned in the field. And so the importance and the significance of this is the value of dollars saved, stress avoided, and getting an animal back home quickly is valuable to our community, to the animal, and to animal services. And I shared in a previous presentation that we estimated that based on an average length of stay of an animal that's reclaimed, that we save approximately $162 per dog that is returned in the field to their owner without impounding them. So of course, all of the work that goes into getting animals reunited in the field by my officers is valuable. They will research microchips. They all have scanners in their vehicles. They will, if they have time, cross-reference lost and found pages. If they found a report that matches an animal that they just picked up, they'll try to get that animal reunited. There's a number of efforts that they'll do. They'll contact dispatch to see if anyone's called in recently with an animal matching the description. So there's a lot of proactive mitigative efforts going on to try to get animals reunited in the field and not brought into the shelter if not absolutely necessary. Moving on to animals that were reunited in the shelter. So these are animals that were brought to the shelter, not by the field, but by a Good Samaritan over the counter, and were returned from the shelter. So 845 animals brought into the shelter. Here we're seeing a smaller number of animals being reunited after they've been impounded, which is not uncommon. Once an animal is brought to a shelter, its likelihood of being reunited decreases significantly.
So on that point, I know, and you may have already touched on this in some detail, but you had started a program, I think it was a couple years ago, where you began actively trying to reunite in the field. And so I just thought that was worth saying, to your point, that
Yes.
it gets a lot more difficult once they're in your possession in the shelter.
Right, yeah, all of the efforts that go into getting animals reunited after they've been impounded if the animal doesn't have identification, it can be a futile effort. If we don't know who that animal belongs to, it's really challenging to, figure out who the owner is, and hopefully the owner has access to social media to see that all of our lost and found animals are posted on our website, and our website is updated every 20 minutes with all of the animals that are in our care, or they hopefully have the ability to call us or to come down to see physically if their animal is with us. But again, the likelihood of some of our pet owners doing that, whether they're fear of being cited or fear of having to pay fees, there are barriers that naturally occur once an animal's been impounded and it's in our care, and an animal owner may not come for it. In some cases, animal owners aren't looking for their pets. So, for example, you have litters of puppies and kittens. They don't become lost. Those puppies and kittens are not wanted. So they come to our care, and then they have to lean on transfer partners for a live outcome because the owner is not looking for them or they don't have one. Same applies for feral cats. They aren't owned by anyone in particular, so they may be brought to us in a trap and there's not anyone looking for that cat. So now we're going to lean on a partner to transfer that cat and hopefully return it to its colony after it's been spayed or neutered. So moving on to transfers of dogs to rescue partners. Again, because Animal Services is not an adoption facility, we rely heavily on all of our transfer and adoption partners, with our largest partner being Nevada Humane Society, co-located on our campus. It's important to really highlight all the efforts of the teams that come together to save animals, because not every partner that you're looking at up there has equal resources. And those are not all of our conclusive list of partners. We have a list of 25 to 30 rescue partners that we work with, depending on gender of the animal, breed of the animal, size of the animal, the needs of the animal. But these are our most frequent transfer partners that we transfer to.
Could you just read those?
Sure. The transfer partners are Nevada Humane Society, and last quarter they transferred 88% of the dogs that we had made available that were not claimed by their owners. The other category includes all of those partners that I mentioned that we work with. 3.5% were transferred to those partners. Pet Network is a routine partner, however, they didn't transfer any dogs last quarter. And Rescue took 4.2%, and then the SPCA of Northern Nevada took 4.2%. So if you look quarter over quarter, you'll see that there was a significant uptick in numbers of animals transferred by our partners in 23 and 24. Though it doesn't look like a lot of numbers on paper, it impacts those small rescue groups and shelters when they transfer even 5 more dogs from us than they did the year before. So we greatly value and appreciate all of the efforts that every rescue partner provides to Animal Services to provide those live outcomes and adoption programs, and in some cases, rehabilitation. So some of those smaller rescue partners that have foster-based can put an animal into a foster home, and though they may not present well in a shelter environment, most do not. They may be shy, withdrawn, they may need socialization, and a foster home is the perfect place to obtain that. And then they can be placed into an adoptive home. So it really kind of takes all of the resources to come together to provide what's best for each animal. This next slide is looking at cat transfers and partners. Cat transfer partners are fewer and far between than dog transfer partners, so we value those as well. The partners that we are working with currently are the Nevada Humane Society, and Options Veterinary Care, which is a nonprofit, has also helped us out with a number of cat transfers. The other category there, and then Pet Network and the SPCA also are our most frequent transfer partners for cats.
Cheyenne,
So-
I'm confused by your numbers here just for a minute, and I had the same question on the last slide. I know you said it's quarter two, and it's comparison of quarter to quarter, right?
Yes.
But are the numbers for 2021, 22, 23, and 24, are those just the quarter two?
Yes.
Because, for example, to go from 43 down to 4 is a pretty big change.
Which category?
I'm looking
are you
at cats, I'm looking at 2024 to 2025 for SPCA, for example.
Yes.
Okay. I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure I was reading it right and that was just for one quarter.
It is for one quarter.
Okay.
Yes. And so it varies. If you look at 2024 transfer percentages to the Humane Society, you see a significant drop in the
Right.
number of cats that they transferred in this quarter in 2024. And so therefore, we had a significant uptick in the other rescue partners that came to the table to help us transfer those cats into their
So
care.
2023, 916, but then it dropped almost in half in 2024, is what you're saying, for this quarter.
Correct.
Okay, and then it bumped back up, not all the way, but, looks like a, significant increase in 2025.
Yes.
Okay.
We are in better shoes this quarter than we were same time last year in terms of cat transfers. And you'll recall that the Humane Society had some renovations going on that limited their ability to transfer cats.
Okay.
And so there was a significant decrease in the number of cats that were able to be transferred to them. So again, focusing on that importance of having that liaison person that can bring more rescue and transfer partners to the table to help us with the outcomes of these animals is really important. It takes a lot of work I have a lead animal services caretaker that focuses on being that liaison currently, but she also is responsible for training all of our new caretakers as well as cleaning when, we're short-staffed and we need her to jump into the kennels and help us. And so she's primarily acting as that liaison to answer questions, to help network the animals, to put photo collages together, to put behavior notes together, and to reach out to those rescue partners to assess their transfer capacity to take on some of these animals. So it does take a lot of work. Despite the fact that Animal Services does not have an adoption program, we work really, really hard to get animals out of our care and into live homes, live adoptive homes, through rescue and transfer partners. And it takes a lot of effort. So this slide is a breakdown of euthanasia for animals that are in our care. And when animals do leave our care by humane euthanasia, it is a situation that is carefully considered, and every detail is reviewed before decisions are made. So the outcomes are reflective of agreed upon criteria that help us determine and remain consistent with the reasons for those decisions. So what you're looking at there in the table is cats that were euthanized first in quarter two. We euthanized a total of 46 cats, one of which was for behavior, which you're not ordinarily going to see in cats. We don't generally euthanize cats for behavior, but we had a particularly aggressive cat that was not able to get along with other cats in colony. So that decision was made for that cat's well-being. And then 45 for quality of life. And one of the things that I do want to mention is when we talk a little bit more about euthanasia collectively, year over year, you're going to see quality of life numbers increase because we hired our own full-time veterinarian last March. And we have our own in-house veterinarian to help us make those decisions, which formerly we had to lean on contract veterinarians and or transfer partners to make those decisions for some of the animals that were in our care if it wasn't clear that quality of life was a necessity to be euthanasia. And then the next category is dog euthanasia. So in quarter two, we euthanized 65 dogs. 39 of those were for behavior, and again, behavior categorized with criteria for that risky behavior that we've talked about. It could be bites, it could be completely unsocialized, a dog that is a danger to be putting back out into our community. The next category is an animal that was declared dangerous, and we euthanized 3 of those. So if a dog is declared dangerous, it isn't an automatic euthanasia. The dog owner has the opportunity to come into compliance with our dangerous dog regulations and code. And oftentimes they either opt not to or they're not in a living situation that allows them to make that requirement or meet those requirements. So those animals were euthanized for that specific behavior. And then next is no rescue resources. We euthanized 9 dogs for no rescue resources. And as a reminder, no rescue resources means that the dogs were not necessarily aggressive. They had some behavior issues that were not able to be met with any of our rescue partners' capacities or resources at the time that the animal needed to be transferred. So 9 of those were euthanized last quarter. And then we had 14 quality of life decisions made for dogs last quarter.
And Cheyenne, can you speak a little bit? I'm not sure I understand what quality of life is.
Sure. So quality of life decisions are generally made for an animal's health. It may be mental challenges. And if there are not resources that are available to be provided for that animal, quality of life decisions may be made. And a prime example is we get a lot of cats that are in end-stage kidney failure. Kidney failure is pretty common in cats. A cat that comes in with end-stage kidney failure isn't necessarily not treatable. It is treatable, or it is manageable, I should say, for a cat to live the remainder of its life on medication and supportive care. But that doesn't mean we have a partner who's able to provide those resources for those animals.
Right, but why wouldn't you put that under, no rescue resources, or why wouldn't you put it under medical? I mean, I understand why not medical, but it seems like it kind of obfuscates the real issue. Like, it's living, and it has let's call it I don't know if the word's perennial, but a disease that affects them on a daily basis, and that needs treatment on a daily basis. Could be diabetes, could be kidney failure. They need help every single day to live their life. And is that that's what you're getting at? But
that is one example of a decision of quality of life. Another example would be, I referenced this dog that we had several months ago that was self-mutilating itself. The dog was going so crazy in the kennel from not having human interaction and stimulus, and probably being overstimulated in the shelter environment, that it was going crazy in the kennel and causing itself to bleed. So that would be another quality of life.
Okay.
This dog does not necessarily have medical issues, but this dog is not going to be safely placed into an adoptive home in a shelter environment.
okay.
And at the last meeting, Chair Dewar asked for sort of a collective overview of euthanasia so that we could see year over year, what are we looking at? And so we put together this slide that shows euthanasia over fiscal years, the last 4 fiscal years. And of course, we're only halfway through this fiscal year, so we're not seeing a complete picture for this fiscal year. But it gives sort of an overview of what are the total numbers of animals euthanized. And in this particular slide, we're looking at dogs and the reasons that they were euthanized. And so we can monitor trends and any upticks and address any concerns by looking at a collective year-over-year look at euthanasia.
And then could you go over those colors, because most of us
Certainly.
cannot read the key. Most of us do not have the printout. Kudos to Ms. Andriola, who does, but the rest of us do not. So, and I know it's hard to read even on Zoom. So could you just go over those?
Sure. From the bottom up, what you're looking at is animal disease lab testing. So those animals that come to us that have bitten someone, and if the owner has signed them over, oftentimes we'll send that animal to the lab for rabies testing versus holding on to it for a 10-day quarantine. So that category is at the very bottom, which looks like only 1 or 2 animals last quarter were euthanized, or so far this fiscal year, for lab testing. And then the next category in orange is for behavior. And then the next category in green is a court order for dangerous dogs. And so the reason that you don't see much of the green in years prior is we did have a code amendment a couple of years ago that added into our code a vicious dog declaration and also a court order for euthanasia. We don't see that often, but when that mandate is made, we do provide the euthanasia service for that. And then the black is the no rescue resources. And the light blue is owner-requested euthanasia, which again is not a common service that we provide. If the animal is already in our care, or let's say one of my officers picks up an animal that's been hit by a car, the owner does not have the resources to treat it, and they have opted to have us euthanize it or a veterinarian euthanize it. You'll see that happen from time to time. And then purple is that quality of life that we talked about. And then the very top line, which doesn't look like we had any of, thankfully, is euthanized for space. And so for those of you board members who were with us when we talked about that painfully in 2024, when we were struggling with transfer partners and capacity, we did have to make some very painful decisions to euthanize for space, which we aim to not ever have to do again.
All right, thanks.
Dias Dixon here. Quick question. It's interesting in 2023 before that there's no black lines. There's no availability of resources until 2024 and now.
Cheyenne, for the record, great question. We added that category in 2024 for no rescue resources to better have a definition for, instead of lumping those animals into a category for space or for behavior, to have a better definition for why those animals were not able to have live outcomes. They may have had some minor behavior that we just simply could not match with a transfer partner. And then this one slide looks at the fiscal yearly euthanasia of cats. And the outcome reasons are similar for cats. The dark blue is the same for the animal disease lab. The orange is for behavior, and again, you're not going to see that frequently. And gray is for medical reasons, and light blue is for that owner-requested euthanasia. And then the purple is quality of life. And so again, there you're going to see that quality of life come into play from here forward, because of our medical team that we have on board to help us make those decisions. And another factor that we utilized prior to having our own veterinarian, because a lot of these quality of life decisions are made through assessments internally on the animals. So blood work, things that help us determine why an animal looks unthrifty, why an animal looks thin, why is an animal drooling. Having our medical team to help us make those determinations through labs and things like that is going to really help us screen better some of these animals that have chronic diseases that are going to end up being a burden to someone else. If they don't know that it exists and we just transferred it, it may ultimately have the same outcome of euthanasia for quality of life. We're moving on to field services. And as a reminder for those that may not have been at the meeting when I talked about the number of field staff that I've got, I have 14 field animal services officers that cover the entire county, 365 days a year, holidays included. We work from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., and I have one officer on call after 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So if an emergency arises, they can be called out by our law enforcement. So with that level of service delivery and number of officers and the number of calls that we respond to, I think it's evident that we're busy. We have lots of things going on in our county, and because we're growing and we have more pets and more people in our community, we don't anticipate these numbers declining or decreasing. And so what we're challenged to think about is how we do business and how can we be more proactive and how can we do things differently so that we're not doing things the same old way. It requires us to really be creative and resourceful. And when we're talking about the resources spent, let's say, for example, on reuniting a pet in the field and having an officer make contact with that pet owner, talking to that pet owner about why did your pet get loose? What are some of the issues and tips and resources that we can provide to you as the subject matter expert to help prevent your pet from getting loose in the future? Maybe it's a spay and neuter resource connection, and thankfully we have lots of partners that we're working with to provide those resources. That might help. Maybe it's moving a trash can away from a fence line so the dog can't jump on the trash can and over the fence. Maybe it's talking to the children about the importance of closing the gate and the door behind you. And also maybe it's the importance of ensuring that your pets have identification, both external and internal. So it really challenges us to think about different ways of doing the same old business, given that we're more busy and we're not likely to see relief from the level of service calls that we receive. So what we're looking at here in terms of the breakdown of the most common types of calls is from the bottom up. You're looking at bite investigations and quarantine. So 412 of those. The dark blue is noise complaints. And we had, looks like 1,252 or 380 of those.
Can I just ask on noise complaints? So
Sure.
are they just responding to the noise complaint, or are they actually taking the animal?
Neither.
Okay.
So what happens with the noise complaint is the complainant contacts our department to lodge the complaint, and then our department sends out a notification to the dog owner if the dog owner is known. In some cases, the dog owner is not known. Someone's reporting that they hear barking in their neighborhood. And unfortunately, there's not a lot animal services can do about that. We're not going to be driving around with our windows down to try to determine where is this dog barking coming from. We don't have those type of resources. So it really is incumbent on the caller to give us the address of the dog owner, and if they've got a description of the dog, it is also helpful. And then they'll be sent a barking log, which they are required to complete, which asks them for the length of time, the times of day or night that the barking is being heard and is a disturbance, and then that is submitted back to us to review to determine whether or not it meets the threshold to issue a notice of civil penalty.
So the notice only comes after the complainant has filled out this form?
So we will only issue a notice of civil penalty if the threshold is met to meet the barking complaint nuisance criteria.
Yeah, but I mean, someone had to fill out that evaluation.
Yes.
Usually the complainant.
Yes. They can call us, though, and lodge the initial complaint.
Right,
To
but
let
then
us
they
know.
get the log to fill out.
Then they will receive the log to complete and fill out and
Yeah.
submit back to us.
Okay.
And they have to be willing to appear in front of an administrative hearing if they wish to, press charges against the dog owner, because that is a civil matter that's between the dog owner and the complainant.
Oh, I
It's
see.
Animal Services essentially handles the complaint for them and requests the administrative hearing if it comes to that.
Just one more question on this. So I have a couple dogs. They bark occasionally. And sometimes I'll be in my house, and they're often outside. We have a fully fenced yard. And I'll hear a dog barking, and I'll think it's our dog. But it's not our dog. And it turns out, no, our dog is like right in the house, like right here. It's not our dog. So even sometimes we have a fair amount of barking dogs in our whole neighborhood. A lot of people have dogs. And what I'm just saying is, even as a dog owner, sometimes I think, well, gosh, that sounds like it could be my dog.
Mm-hmm.
And there they are, right there, not barking, they're sleeping. And I just wonder, I'm sure that there's confusion too with these reports sometimes.
There can be, yes. And sometimes, when you have a person that's complaining, they're frustrated, and rightfully so in some cases. And they just want Animal Services to do something about it. But unless we can demonstrate that a nuisance has occurred with chronic, ongoing barking, there's not a lot we can do. The cases are going to be dismissed in the administrative hearing if there's not a demonstrated nuisance. And so that's the intention for the barking log. And your point exactly, I've done the same, where if my dogs were the neighbor across the street who has chronic barking dogs. But that's the point of that log, is to ensure that you are adequately demonstrating that this is occurring for several days and for several minutes or hours each day. And so it's not just a one-off, here's one time I heard this dog barking for 4 hours. That is not going to constitute a nuisance.
Gotcha.
And
So-
I'm happy to bring forward one of my field officers to provide an overview of the complete barking process, if that would be helpful.
Well, it looks like it's your second largest category. I don't know what purple is, because again, I can't quite read the thing, but what is it? Stray. Yeah, picking up strays. So
Yes.
yeah, it's probably one of the biggest things, neighbor on neighbor confusion, annoyance, whatever. It wouldn't hurt to hear from them. The other thing I wanted to ask is, do they need to take pictures of the dog barking, or we have audio now where you can record? Do people do that more and more in terms of evidence?
Sometimes people do submit evidence, video or audio evidence, that would be potentially heard in an administrative hearing. Yes, that is done from time to time, but I would say the large majority of folks just fill out the log
Gotcha.
with the times and
Yeah.
frequencies
And
of
then
those
one more
barking.
thing, can the person where the complaint's being filed against, can they see that log?
It is subject to public record request, yes. So that could be requested and could be seen, yes. And also the complainant, yes.
Oh, who the complainant is?
Yes,
Okay, so it's not confidential, it's actually,
no.
okay.
Member Fisher, for the record, I just want to clarify, are we talking about the dark blue right now?
orange.
Or the orange?
The dark blue is the barking complaints.
That's what I thought.
And
Okay,
the orange is the other calls, so we've got quite a bit lumped into other. So yes, I was going to make that clarification,
Oh.
so you weren't thinking that the orange were barking complaints.
I did.
The 380 barking or nuisance complaints is what we're talking about.
The dark blue,
Yes.
okay, sorry. And orange
okay.
is other, and purple is stray.
Purple is, yes, purple are those stray animal calls.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then green are the unrestrained animals, and gray are welfare calls.
Okay. But it is good to get out there. I don't know that people know about this barking record and that that's something they could actually see. To dispute maybe the case, to say, look, I was on a trip and my dog was with me. It wasn't my dog. To be able to review the evidence,
Right.
because it's a serious thing.
It is, and it's probably one of the most challenging complaints that Animal Services receives for us to resolve. If neighbors aren't willing to work together to mitigate their issues, it's really challenging for us to do it through a punitive fashion. Oftentimes, if someone is dealing with a barking dog that they don't know how to mitigate, they'll just surrender it. So that's
Okay.
not what we want to see. We want to see people keep their animals, but we want to
Well-
see them work through tools and resources to help mitigate that barking.
One more just thing to introduce, and I don't know if everyone was on the board then, but back when I first started, got elected back 11 years ago, that summer, there were barking dogs out. I had South Reno, part of my area, and there's a big meadows out there, very few trees, and so sound travels in the night. And I had a reporter who was at home, who was hearing a barking dog, and decided to contact me. And then she was also recording it on her laptop, and she was outside. And it became, that's when I became aware that we had an arrangement between the city of Reno and the sheriff's department about who would respond to barking dog complaints. And there was an MOU. And right after I called and talked to the attorneys, they dusted off this MOU and updated it. This is a long time ago, though, and it's about 10 years ago. So I just wondered, is that MOU still in place? Is it you responding? Is it the sheriff's department responding? And I'm talking about you have off hours. You have one officer on call after 10. It was 11:30 at night when this was happening in South Reno. So just generally, I think it's great education. What's the protocol here?
Cheyenne, for the record. So just to clarify, Animal Services is responding after hours to emergency natured calls only. A barking complaint is never going to be perceived as an emergency. So we would not respond to that. But we are the entity who typically does respond. And so barking complaints do come to us. And
Okay.
to my knowledge, law enforcement partners do not respond to barking complaints. They will forward them to us if they do receive them. But we do not respond after hours to barking complaints.
Right, but I was informed at the time, and maybe this is something for us, for you to just take a peek at, is what is that protocol still in place? Because there was a whole MOU between Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, saying Washoe County Sheriff would respond to these late-night barking calls, and maybe our attorneys could help us check into that, and dust it off and just see where that is.
I'm happy to look into
Okay.
that. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
So.
It was before I was on this board, before you had the board. You didn't start the board till about 2016, I want to say.
Correct.
And this was like in 2014, 2015. So,
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Any
All right.
other questions before I move on? All right. So moving on to animal welfare natured calls. These calls consist of neglect and animal cruelty by nature. They require an investigation by an animal services officer to determine whether or not a crime has been committed. My officers will, as part of these investigations, frequently review video or photographic evidence of crimes that are reported to us. They'll collect statements from witnesses and or neighbors, people in the neighborhood, and sometimes seize animals from terrible situations. And in many cases, the animal services officer is able to work with the animal owner to educate them, to provide resources, to resolve those complaints without having to seize an animal or take a punitive approach. And so what you're looking at here is out of 727 welfare calls last quarter, 98 were unfounded. So again, a lot of times we'll get a call and someone is calling in a dog locked in a hot vehicle. We get there and the vehicle is gone. So it's not a founded complaint because we weren't able to substantiate anything. In other cases, someone's dog's locked out of the yard and they don't have shelter. And the officer responds, makes contact with the pet owner and finds out there's a doghouse in the corner of the yard that the neighbor can't see. So those would be categorized in unfounded. 546 of those cases reached other outcomes. So again, working with them, educating them, providing resources to them, tools to mitigate whatever the situation is. Sometimes it is something as simple as a doghouse is necessary. Sometimes it's as simple as you need to secure your water bucket so the dog doesn't tip it over. And sometimes it's as simple as you need to get your dog groomed because it's matted and it causes pain. And so let's help you get that taken care of. And then 83 of those calls ended up in a punitive or citation response. And so, again, trying to work through those as proactively as we can, not taking a punitive approach automatically, and hoping that our pet owners can be receptive to education and resources and to be understanding of requirements by NRS and Washoe County Code. Sometimes they're just not aware. So helping to educate those pet owners and mitigate some of those calls is what we ultimately aim to do. But of course, egregiousness is something that my officers have to have discretion and understand when is it time to prosecute and to press charges. Little lighter topic. So as you that were on the board last couple of meetings probably heard me stress out a little bit about losing my program coordinator for maternity leave for several months. I'm happy to report, is back to work this week. So my hope is that we are going to pick back up some of the programs that we had to suspend and or significantly slow down in her absence. But I am still going to report on what we were able to accomplish in quarter two as it relates to outreach programs. So the care support that you're looking at up there are those referrals for something as simple as a grooming that someone needs help with, or it could be a dog that broke its leg and needs veterinary care. We had 33 of those last quarter. The next category there is our pet food distribution program. We've been doing free pet food distribution in partnership with the SPCA for several years. We distribute pet food at the senior center on the third Tuesday of every month, and we also deliver food to the homebound senior food program as well, so that those seniors who are shut-ins can still receive pet resources for their pets and not give their people food to their pets. So we had 338 seniors served last quarter through that program, and 802 pets served through that program last quarter. And we do track those so that we are able to quantify approximately how many people and pets we are able to help. Vaccinations that were given, 551, and pets that were vaccinated were 338. And so those were through our vaccination clinics that we hold monthly at our shelter on the first Wednesday of every month from 3 to 7. And we are also participating in events when and where staffing is available and it's possible for us to attend. The clinics that we had at our office, that's just a breakdown of how many vaccinations that we did in the 3 vaccine clinics that were held. We did 338 pets were served with 251 rabies vaccines and 194 free microchips that were implanted and registered. We participated in the pumpkin patch at Verdi Elementary, and I have a team of a couple of folks on my team who have developed some interactive fun games that they can take to events such as this that are animal-oriented, that people can spin the wheel and win some of our swag that we have that's geared for animal services. So they had a great time out there talking to families and children about what animal services does. We had the city of Sacramento County visited Animal Services last quarter and shadowed us. They really wanted to learn all about our vaccine clinics, but they also wanted to learn about some of our sheltering services. And so they kind of followed staff around and they observed and took notes about how we are conducting our vaccine clinics and some of our shelter services as well. And they were pretty impressed with what we do. We also hosted a Future Leaders Tour of Animal Services. We participated in the Glenn Duncan Elementary Career Presentation. That picture up there, I believe, is from one of those presentations where one of my officers is talking to the kids, and as you can see, they're quite engaged. We also provided a disaster preparedness presentation to the CERT team, and specifically focusing on pets and how our community can prepare for their pets and themselves to evacuate. And then a recap of the seniors served at the bottom through our pet food distribution event. This medical team update is exciting to me because it's not one that I've been able to talk a lot about prior. We've been busy on the ground assembling our medical team. As I mentioned, we hired our vet last March. And once we got our veterinarian, Dr. Slayton, on board, it was pretty immediate that we brought on a vet assistant. So she's been busy with recruitment, hiring, training, and getting our team ready to provide, first and foremost, services on the animals that are in our care. And secondary to that, we want to partner with our other partners in our community to provide spay-neuter services. And so a lot of the things that have been going on behind the scenes at Animal Services is sort of what I mentioned: training, putting together protocols, letting the team sort of meld their working relationships and figure out how they're going to work together. High volume spay-neuter requires medical teams to really work together and to complement one another. And so we approached Options Veterinary Care to see if they would be willing to participate with us to offer that as a training opportunity, their surgical suite and their teams. To get my team sort of up to speed, give them some cross-training, and sort of get them ready for services that we would like to provide to our community. So we did that over the month of November and December, over a couple of different days. And so then we decided that we were going to do a pilot and offer trap, neuter, and return spay-neuter services through a nonprofit, Community Cats, which some of you have heard from that have been on the board, to provide those spay-neuter services for cats over 3 different days in December. And we spayed and neutered, our team did 70 cats in those 3 days. And we were able to spay. A large majority of those were females. I believe 49 of those cats were females. And so if we look at what we prevented in the way of kittens. If one cat has a litter of an average of 6 kittens, we may have prevented 294 kittens from being added into our already overpopulated homeless population of cats. So this allowed our team to get some practice under their belt. And in January, which I'll be happy to provide more statistics at the next quarterly meeting, we formally started offering trap, neuter, and return services through Community Cats. So Animal Services does not trap, we don't transport, we simply provide the spay neuter services for the targeted colony cats that Community Cats is bringing to us on Tuesdays of every week. And so I'll be excited to report that number to you all next quarter about how many cats we were able to spay neuter. But it's exciting to us to be able to start offering more resources to such a desperately needed program in our community. Additionally, what is happening within our medical team is for those smaller rescue partners who do not have a veterinarian or a physical shelter, and they transfer animals from us, we would like to spay neuter them prior to transfer. And so we started doing that a couple of weeks ago. I think we have about 6 dogs under our belt at this point that we were able to alter before they went to rescue. And so they will be able to be more readily available for adoption. And as any of you who have been on the board know, the backlog of spay neuter appointments is significant. It can be months. So for us to be able to provide this service to our smaller rescue partners, we hope that it will be a value and an incentive to continue transferring animals from us and providing live outcomes for them. And the last thing I wanted to update everyone on is we talked a little bit last time about what is happening infrastructurally within our building. And though this isn't necessarily related to the entire building, what Animal Services has been doing and trying to incorporate into our fiscal year budget planning is our building is approaching 20 years old. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of abuse through water, through traffic, through rolling carts, through animals digging and chewing and clawing on gates and things. And so what we've been doing is slowly picking away at things that need to be either upgraded, updated, and or replaced. And in some cases, we needed to just do an overhaul. And so we replaced our washer and dryer with a commercial washer and dryer last quarter. And what that did was help us totally consolidate the amount of laundry that you can imagine. They were just mountains of laundry every day to try to keep up with. So by being able to do more laundry in one load, it has substantially decreased the workload. We replaced the countertops and added cabinets in the small animal room, which houses ferrets, bunnies, random animals. We didn't have any counters in there, so we were like trying to make do with carts and tables and cages underneath. And so we had the Washoe County facilities carpenters come in and help us with putting in some stainless tops and putting in counters and cabinets for storage so that we have an appropriate small animal room. And then the interior door painting and kick plate project, we have I can't even believe the number of doors that are in our facility. We're taking it in phases. And so we're doing a number of doors in this fiscal year, and then we'll, in the next fiscal year, take on the next set of doors. But completely painting and sanding down rust spots and patching and replacing kick plates on some of our doors to help give it that facelift that it desperately needed. And then kennel flooring, reseal, again, high wear and tear, chemicals, water every day, animal use and abuse. It was necessary, and this also has to be done through phasing in because of animals occupying those areas. And so we have to strategically plan when that work is done and how long the floors need to seal before we can put animals back in the areas. And so those are some of the improvements that we're working on. The last thing that you see up there, I may have mentioned before, it's been a project that we've been working on for a year or more, related to adding a play yard for animals that are in our care. We don't have an appropriate area to allow animals to stretch, run, and to be a dog. And so we have identified an area alongside the Marquez frontage road where it's currently a grassy area with some trees that we want to add a play yard that's almost the length of the building. So it will provide an opportune area for some of our longer stay dogs, as well as perhaps for some of our behavior assessments in an area that would be appropriate. And so we are underway with a capital improvement project for that. And we also are excited to announce that we received a grant from the ASPCA for $95,000 to help us with this project. So that is something that we're excited to see come to fruition, and my fingers are crossed that by the end of this calendar year that we have a nice play yard addition to our shelter for our dogs. So those are some of the improvements that we've been working on within our facility. And with that, that concludes my updates, but I also wanted to mention, this is currently ongoing with some of our nonprofit partners. We're doing a Spay-Neuter Awareness Month for the month of February in honor of World Spay Day, which we thought that we'd have a more impact if we celebrated all month long. And so we are collaborating with Options Veterinary Care reached out to us and the SPCA to collaborate together to see what could we do collectively, individually, to promote spay-neuter, to provide spay-neuter, to educate about spay-neuter, and bring on other nonprofit rescue groups to help spread the word as well. And so for the month of February, we are celebrating it, sharing it, marketing it. So if you see it on our Facebook page, feel free to share it. We created some messaging in Spanish to help get the word out. Options is providing affordable spay-neuter services, and Animal Services is continuing our TNR services through the month of February. And the SPCA also has an affordable spay-neuter program, a voucher program that they're offering also for people to be able to utilize a list of participating veterinarians to spay and neuter their pets. And so we encourage you all to share that information. We'll be happy to provide the statistics. The goal is to spay and neuter 500 dogs and cats in the month of February through our collective resources. And so I hope that we attain it, and I hope that you'll help us get there. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Yeah. All right. Unbelievably thorough and comprehensive report today. I know you said it was going to be a little longer, so for our newer members, this is not a typical length, but it is usually a pretty lengthy report, but not to this extent. But any comments or questions from anyone? Yes, Ms. Broussard.
Trudy Broussard for the record. First, I wanted to, well, I speak for myself, and I hope the board, we really support you in your need for the liaison. That would be significant, I'm sure. I mean, all the help you can get. And then at our last meeting, we talked about how difficult it is to get community support for the hot dog calls. And there was a gentleman, I think he was online, I'm pretty sure he was not present online, who said he would make a call and take care of Costco for us. And I just wondered, did you hear anything following that?
Cheyenne Shell, for the record, I vaguely do remember a public commenter talking about that, and I have not heard any follow-up on that. So I'm not sure if that person got any headway or not. I haven't heard anything back.
His name was actually in the minutes, and I was surprised I couldn't have recalled it. And boy, if you haven't heard from him, nothing happened.
It's not as easy as it sounds, that's for sure. When you're working with corporate, as I think I mentioned previously, it's really challenging.
Have any steps been made and any good ideas from other hot areas in the country?
To my knowledge, we haven't had any concerted effort being focused on that particular project. And so no, that would be my answer. We're not particularly focused in that area at the present time, nor do we have the resources to focus in that area. What we typically will do is share with media how many calls that we've had and try to raise the level of awareness at the beginning of our warm season and try to get the community to, leave their pets at home and to be responsible. But we have not researched or shared any resources related to that particular need.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Fisher, anything? Mr. Dixon, Ms. Andriola? I just want to thank you for an incredibly comprehensive report. We could spend hours on going off on tangents on a number of issues you brought up. We took a little time on a couple of them. But one thing I wanted to follow up on, you mentioned the spay neuter. And what I would love to see, and I'll bring this up under agenda items, but I'd love to see, I know that the county was able to share some of its ARPA money with Nevada Humane and also with Options to increase the spay neuter. I was wondering if at our next board meeting you could give us some more information about how that's going. Have they started? What are they seeing, experiencing? I mean, you gave a great report on some of the spay neuter stuff that you're doing, but you're our only conduit to the rest of what's happening with animals in Washoe County. So if you could try to get that information, and I know we'll hear from NHS, but I'd love to just get a separate standalone report because we have Options too, and you kind of all in one report and see how we're doing.
Of course.
I would love to see that. And I know your staff are incredibly hardworking. Many times today you've said, we don't have the resources for that, we don't have the resources for that. And I know, relatively speaking, you're pretty understaffed. So, I don't know how the budget will go. I know the challenges we're all facing at all our home offices, so to speak. We do have Ms. Andriola here from the county, and you will review the county's budget. So it's just, we won't be at that table. No pressure. But I'm just saying, it was your predecessors as well. So Mayor Luz Garcia, and then also before her. They've always sort of taken on that role because Animal Services is embedded in Washoe County, and us at the other jurisdictions, we don't have a say over that or any input over that. So it's just something to be cognizant of, that it unfortunately falls to you to be our advocate. So for this field. And, it all has to be balanced out, and we understand. So whatever the outcome is, the outcome is. But, we'll just see how that all goes. But anyway, it sounds like with you have you only have 2 vacancies, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Because usually there's often about a 20% vacancy rate, so that'd be about 8, and you have 2, and so that's great.
Cheyenne, for the record, if I may, Madam Chair, if we had a 20% vacancy, we would crumble.
Yeah,
It's
but I'm
challenging.
saying a lot of agencies do, and a lot of departments do, and even it's on a snapshot on a day. So in any one day, it may be vacant positions, but people out on leave, people out on vacation, people out on sick, people out on family emergency. My experience working decades in public service has been there often is about a 20% vacancy at any one time, for all the reasons, not due to unfilled positions. So the smaller the unfilled position number, obviously you get to impact that overall who's out of the office today kind of issue. So. All right, well, thank you so much. Seeing no more questions, we're going to close out this item. It's not an action item, so we're not going to take public comment on this one. We are going to move on to 7, which is establishing the meeting dates for 2025. And I don't know if you have a PowerPoint where you could put those up on a slide for us. That'd be great. I know you've put them in the backup materials.
Yes, we have a calendar to share with you all for the calendar year of 2025.
Yeah.
So hopefully Dre can get that pulled up for you all. What we tried to preemptively do is eliminate holidays that are not an option for us to meet, and also dates that are not available because staff will not be here to help us conduct the meeting. And so it will help hopefully steer our conversation to the dates that are available.
Yeah.
And while he's pulling up the calendar, I do want to remind everyone that though we do meet quarterly, the hope is that we can meet the month after the former quarter. I will remind everyone that it's really difficult for Animal Services to meet before the 3rd week of the month because we have to have time to put together our data from the quarter before and also our presentations and everything that we provide to you in this meeting. So we're hoping to shoot for that third week or fourth week or subsequent month to the quarter. So just as a reminder, that's our internal challenges. It does take quite a bit of time to put together all of our stats.
But you have selected some proposed dates.
I have not selected, no. I have eliminated dates that are not
Right,
available.
but would you mind, Madam Clerk, putting that up? I think it's in the board packet, the calendar with the open dates.
We're getting it set up now.
Okay, well, let's just start going over them. So our next meeting would be in April? Is that right?
So the
Normal?
quarterly meeting normally, yes.
Yeah.
However, I will be at a conference
Oh.
during the normal week that we would hold this meeting. And so we will need to discuss what an
Well,
appropriate
but what's your
date.
proposal? Is it the 2nd or?
So I
May?
would propose moving the board meeting, if it was agreeable to the board, to May 2nd.
Right. Okay. It looks like I will probably be gone that day myself. I don't know about anybody else. We have a water resource tour that's taking place, and you may want to go on that too.
I'm going on another tour.
The
Same
t-
tour, but not that day.
Okay, well, it's a 2-day thing, May 1st and 2nd. I don't know if you,
No, I'm not on.
different one,
Yeah.
okay. All right, what does the following, and the following Friday, we have flood in the morning, and,
I wrote it on here.
Okay.
Some of the boards I'm on with you.
Yeah.
So that's what this,
okay,
see how
sorry,
we have a,
So the calendar is up now for
okay,
reference.
yeah. So we have, let me
see how
just,
they're not
yep,
available
yep.
on the 9th, so
yep,
either the 2nd or the 16th.
16th, right. Let me look at the 16th. How does the 16th look for you guys for May? Are you good?
Yeah,
Okay.
these are mine, I checked it.
Yeah. All right, well, seeing no objection, what about May 16th?
Works for me.
Okay. And that would be in the morning. I do have another board meeting in the afternoon. Okay, so we'll go with May 16. Okay. And then the next month you would want is usually July, but,
She's not available,
Yeah.
so hopefully August.
and what about the 25th or
I never can make the 4th.
the 4th? Okay, that's fine. And what about August 1st? Let's just look at that. So, let's see. I'm wide open. But yeah. Anyone? August 1? And by the way, sometimes we set these and sometimes we have to change them. New things come up, like you had the event that conflicted with our last meeting, so we had to change it as an example. Okay, so looking at August 1 for everyone. Diaz is still scrolling. Oh, geez. Okay, yes? Okay, so August 1. And then the next one would normally be October
And that works for everybody if it's
17. So let's just take a peek. Works for me, for sure. Okay. Yeah, so far, October 17 looks good. Okay. And we've already had, our January, February. So let's try for those. And then please, I don't know if Julie, because we do have the Zoom on, I didn't know if Julie was still joining us.
Ms. McMahon had to leave the meeting to attend the meeting that she told us about. But
Yeah.
hopefully she will be back on
Okay,
afterwards.
great. Okay. Well, please check with her as well, and let's just set this up for our attentive. And then we also want to check with Joe Rodriguez.
Yes.
And see his availability. But we have a good, 5 members can make these dates at this time. things could change. So we're looking at May 16th, August 1, and October 17.
Correct.
Okay? All right. Okay. Do we need a motion for that, or is that just go into your, it says no possible action. Do you want a motion for that?
That would really be at the preference of the board. It's not, you're not technically required.
Yeah, okay, very good. So on advice, this is our recommended meeting time, Cheyenne, so that'd be great. All right, so we'll move on to item 8, which is election of officers. And we'll need to, every year, we elect a chair and vice chair from this board. And so I'm looking for any input, volunteers, that kind of thing.
Trudy Broussard, for the record,
Yeah.
if you need a vice chair, I could be available.
Okay, all right, thank you. You raised your hand, Mr. Dixon?
Yes, Dias Dixon, for the record, yes, I'd like to support Trudy Broussard as VP and Madam Chair Naomi Dewar as the
To continue?
president.
Or chair, okay.
Or chair.
Yeah, I'd be fine to continue serving. I mean, that works fine. I know we want to get our new members up to speed, at least a meeting or two under their belt. But sure, I'm willing to serve for next year. So is that a motion? You did make a motion?
Yes, that is a motion.
Okay.
And
then
nomination.
looking for a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Ms. Andriola. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Broussard, for stepping up. I hope to not miss any meetings. It's a pretty low requirement as far as being vice chair for this board, but there's always the time, and there has been a time, I'm sure, in the past where we've had to call on our vice chair. So thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 9, which is the advisory board member and staff announcements, requests for information, and selection of topics for future agendas. And I'll just kick off. I'd love to get a report on how the spay-neuter, the newly enhanced spay-neuter programs are going in our county. Have they started the programs? Where are they? How many have they done? All the things. And to have the, representatives from both those programs participate in that would be great. Okay. Would anybody else like to, please, Ms. Andriola?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to extend my deepest appreciation for being able to serve on the board, but I also want to extend, again, my appreciation to Director Schull for taking the time to go over the great work you all are doing and everyone's doing, and providing me with all the governing documents that essentially statutorily created this board, and then the bylaws that help govern and frame the board. And in doing that, I see that there are some things that may be warranting just further discussion on the bylaws. I realize that needs to be agendized. I'm not suggesting we talk about that at this point to make sure I don't get in any trouble with legal. But the reality is that it's absent in terms of, for instance, a couple points I'll just bring out. It's absent of the maximum number of terms that can be served by the chair and the vice chair. It speaks to the non-elected members, but doesn't necessarily speak to the leadership piece. I think that there's some other opportunities in terms of just good, practice or best practices to look at the bylaws at a certain period of time, and it's my understanding they've not been reviewed in approximately 8 years. So it might be a good time to have everyone look at that. I'd also point out that one of the provisions that I saw may warrant additional review and discussion in terms of specifying the review of the director. It talks about periodically, and what I mean by the review of the director, I'm not talking about the review of the director, but having the director periodically report to the Board of County Commissioners, to which I serve. Periodically is a very wide term, and I think that there may warrant additional discussion in terms of even as needed. I realize that things come up that, it could be worded maybe a little differently in terms of even just having it be annually or as needed. I think always giving an annual report. To the chair's point about understanding animal services and the budget factor, I think is really helpful. I think the timing of that is really helpful to present to the Board of County Commissioners. Those are just a couple of points that I'll bring out at this point, but I would like to request that we look at that as an agendized item when time permits, up to the chair and the director. Thank you.
Well, I fully support that. I'm glad you brought it up. I do that on almost every board. Haven't done it on this board for a while. But when you're looking at those bylaws, and would you also research making the annual presentation to the Sparks and to the Reno councils? To Ms. Andriola's point, we do that at with other regional boards. And we just had Flood, for example, come this month. We have RTC come every year. I don't believe we've seen you, Cheyenne, come to the other boards, with an update. And we can go over that. But if you could, when you're looking at the bylaws and getting ready to bring them, it'd be something to think about. And also as to the terms, this did come up earlier. And so when our attorneys are looking at the terms, they said that the elected officials, we had no terms. But anyway, I'm just as a note. But anyway, so if you guys.
I know we can't discuss it because it's not agendized. I just want to clarify my point, though. It wasn't terms because I realize elected or appointed by the body to which the jurisdiction. What I meant by that is the chair and the vice chair does not have terms. So I just want a point of clarification. Thank you for indulging me.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make an announcement that this is going to be my last meeting representing the Animal Services Advisory Board, at least for the foreseeable future. And the gentleman next to me here, I don't know if everyone has met him. This is Kobe Burnett. He is an attorney with my office. And so he's going to be kind of taking over this board. So he'll be at the next meeting, your legal counsel. So, and I wanted to tell everyone I really appreciated working with this board. You all have been wonderful. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, Jen, I have to say, I mean, you've been amazing. I know you've been serving for 10 years, I understand, for animal services. So you've really gotten a great depth of knowledge. And you've been a great, let's call it lodestar. We've had some very difficult issues, things like the dangerous dog issue, things like not spay-neuter programs, but just the regulations, the permit fees. I mean, we have, over the years, we've taken quite a bit of actions. And just to share, for those who haven't been on as long, we've had some very lengthy meetings, right, to really delve into the issues and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners, who, at the end of the day, is the one that has to adopt these regulations. We're advisory. And so, and also, taking another step, we've also been successful in getting legislative changes, as to my knowledge. Is that correct, or am I misstating? I know we've tried.
Cheyenne, for the record, we have given some valiant efforts, yes.
Yes, we have tried at several sessions to get some changes. Maybe don't have some sponsors, but, we need to continue to work that area so that statewide, they have the most progressive animal laws that they can. And so that's important as well. Anyone else have any agenda items? Yes, Ms. Broussard.
This may be minor, but Director Shull mentioned that the building's 20 years old, and I just wondered when an assessment was last done on the health and welfare of the HVAC system, because if that goes, that's dead. That's dead. And I'd love to see an update, and I also have no idea whether doing something about it is in the animal services budget or is it the county budget for facilities. So a little clarification on that would be nice. Thank you.
Of course. I'll be happy to ask for a representative of facilities to come speak on that topic.
Thank you.
Okay. And while you're doing that on the building, I would like to see a broader review of the building. You mentioned it's 20 years old. We have a portion of the building out, with Nevada Humane. I had heard they made an announcement that you mentioned the play area, but they also mentioned an area. Are these together or are these two separate areas?
Cheyenne, for the record, they are two separate independent areas. The area that Animal Services has identified is on our side of the property, and the area that I believe you're referencing that Nevada Humane Society is dedicating our project to is the old Reno shelter. That's behind both of our property
Gotcha.
areas.
And they were demoing?
They demoed that area, and they have a project going back there that will be specifically for their staff and volunteers, to my knowledge.
For exercise dogs and things like that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, it would be good to get a broader assessment. I concur with the HVAC, but I think there were some repairs, or maybe that was roof. But it would just be good to get a general assessment of the status of the building, all its systems, and also the apportionment of space in the building, both inside the building and on the grounds. Okay. All right. And I think there was one other thing. You know, Cheyenne, I think I had asked you, isn't it time to bring the PSA, our agreement with Nevada Humane Society? You started a review a long time ago. You were going to have updates to that. This is months and months and months ago, like a year ago, and then you were going to bring the updated PSA to us, if I'm calling it by the right term.
Cheyenne, for the record, so what I would propose doing, if the board agrees, is at the next meeting, bringing an update of where we are. We
Okay.
have not opened the PSA for review. We are working through working agreements with Nevada Humane Society staff, and some of those work sessions that I referenced that occurred in 23 and 24.
Right.
And actually applying those. But I do believe it would be worthwhile to bring an update of where we are with that shared protocol that I talked about today, as well as where we are with any of our other overlap partnership
Gotcha.
areas.
So the shared protocol being the behavior and where you transfer animals from one to the other?
Yes.
Okay, we really need to know about that, because we've been talking about that for a long time. You started a whole new program. I'd like to know how it's working, where the pinch points are, and I really want to see our those protocols updated, and I really want to see the agreement updated to reflect, the newest agreements that are embedded in it. And so I think that would be well worth our time. It's key to the successful operation of this entity. So,
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other recommendations for agenda items? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our final public comment. And Madam Clerk, I see some people on Zoom, but I can't tell if those are people that want to make public comment or not. And I should have, before we get there, still under item 9, while you're figuring that out, I did want to acknowledge that for those that are not aware on Zoom, we were what's called Zoom bombed. I'm going to be reviewing with our staff protocol to take. When that happened, I did a quick check, and there's actually things that we can institute to eliminate that, or at least significantly reduce the opportunity for it. And I'm not sure we're using all of those protocols today. And that includes waiting rooms, that maybe includes setting it up as a webinar. And I want to apologize to anyone. I know I was offended by the racist comments and the other photos that were shown, and it's inappropriate, and I just want to acknowledge it. And there may be people on Zoom, but there's people here at our own desks, and we didn't miss a beat, but generally it is acknowledged that we should miss a beat, that we should pause, that we should stop the meeting and not continue on. So I wanted to acknowledge that we're going to review the criteria and process for handling those kinds of situations. Maybe something different next time. Ms. Andriola said she was at another meeting where it happened. So it sounds like it, maybe it's coincidence, or maybe it's a more current problem. But, I just wanted to assure the board that I'm going to meet with the staff later to talk about how to best address it. And also, I'm sure some of you, I certainly was, it was a little hard to focus for the next 30 minutes, probably for me. Some people may have a longer recovery time or shorter recovery time. We didn't miss a beat, but at the same time, it did affect me personally, and I'm sure it must have affected some of you too. So we're going to do better to see what we can do, to address the situation. All right? Okay. All right, back to public comment.
We did have a question from one of the people on there that she emailed to us when the old link had to be shut down, but I don't see that she's raised her hand. So Ms. Brown, did you wish to address the board at this time? You can unmute if so.
Okay, is that Bonnie Brown?
She's not unmuting, so I don't believe that she wishes to address the board at this time, but I will forward that email on to the board.
Okay. So just making sure you know, Bonnie, we're in final public comment if you wanted to make a final public comment. And next time, we'll have protocols to end and restart the meeting, so everybody will kind of know what those are. And, we'll go forward. So I don't see her with her hand raised or speaking. So is there anyone else, Madam Clerk?
There is not, no.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we'll close public comment and we'll officially adjourn the meeting here at 10:51.